One of the best.
A good coach?
Oh yeah.
October the 3rd, 1959. And in doubtful weather, once again, at the West versus Port Grand Final here in Adelaide, a crowd in the vicinity of 40,000 have turned out to see the start of this all-important Grand Final. And I'm sure they won't be disappointed. There's great tension in the air as the crowd, already on their toes, await the appearance of our two leading teams in what will be the most significant game for many years. Everyone here is asking the same question. Can West, unlucky West, topple the mighty Magpies from their treetop? This could be West's day. The fans are on in their full glory today. On the western side we see Port Adelaide with plenty of decorations as usual. Everyone keyed up and ready to go into the big game today. And West Adelaide too, with their red and black pennant, are well in the picture. See those fans cheer as they await the arrival of their team onto the field. First onto the field in the start of the 1959 Grand Final is Port Adelaide.
So you were playing Colts or seconds at Port Adelaide while Wally was there?
When he was where?
At Port Adelaide?
Yeah. So I played under 17s and under 19s. And when I was in the under 19s, I was sent up to the seconds. I played seconds. And I was probably, it must have been 16 or 17 I was then, probably 17. Yeah, I went and played in the seconds until I got injured, and that was the end of it then. But the highlight of my sporting life was playing one game with Wally. That would have 1961, I think. Woodville weren't in the competition, not in the A grade competition. They were in the B grade competition, as were Central Districts. And I was playing seconds at the time, and I can't recall whether Wally had been dropped from the A grade side or whether he was coming back from an injury. But as I said, the highlight of my life was playing one game with him, yeah.
Because he's your...
My older brother.
He's your older brother?
Yeah. Who did you think he was?
Well, I didn't know what relation he was.
Beg your pardon, sorry, yeah. Yeah, he's my older brother.
Yeah, there you go.
10 years older than I was, yeah. So I basically grew up, watching him and...
Idolising him, obviously, being an older brother.
I did, yeah. I idolised him not only as a footballer, but as all kids did in those days. I mean, if you lived in Port Adelaide, everybody loved Port Adelaide players, and there's some big ones. Don't forget, the 5 in a row they won, or 6 in a row, whatever it was. So not only did I idolise him and others as footballers, but I idolised him as a person too. He is something special as a person, yeah.
Hell of a nice guy.
A good coach?
Oh yeah.
63-4, we had Donnie Thompson coach in 63, 64 was Ken Tierney, 65 was...
65 with Brian Fairclough, and that was a fairly hard year. But 1966, I think, was a year that the club turned the corner because Wally Dittmar came in and he promoted, much the same as Jack did in 72, he promoted a lot of younger guys, much to the vagrant of JC, because he'd been one of Wally's best mates, and Wally dropped him. But it was the extent that Wally was more about the future of the club rather than looking after his mates. And
they stayed mates after that?
Oh yes, I'm sure they did. We had lots of good times together still, but JC, I think, seen the writing on the wall, and from there on I think he moved on to umpiring shortly after that.
Had a good career in umpiring.
Yeah, he certainly did.
How many games did you play?
I played 201, but probably about 100 of them with the A's.
Oh yeah, look, well, don't forget, JC, John Christensen, Wally, Dennis Bryan and another fellow, I can't remember, another one or two fellows, they went on a boat cruise together well before this. They were good mates. In fact, that's where John Christensen and Wally met their wives, on the boat cruise to Fiji. So they had a lot in common. I mean, but JC and Wally, they were very good friends, and I became part of that circle as years went by. But JC, he would never have bothered about that. He knew that Wally was there to do a job, and Wally just did the job. It was no problem, no animosity whatsoever.
Pretty much made Rosewater a Power.
Yeah, at the time. Well, I don't know about them being a power, but they were.
Well, it was the start of a pretty good era. Played in 4 preliminary finals in a row.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And they, I think.
A1.
Yeah, I think he installed a level of semi-professionalism within the club. I think, whereas before a lot of people perhaps just went out for a bit of a kick and a giggle, and if they were good enough to play in the A1. But I think Wally solidified them a little bit and made them a bit better than what they might have been otherwise. And his style of coaching was very. Well, I used the word before methodical, but it was methodical because he had a plan. And he put that plan to good use. I saw him introduce some players that played A1 for Rosewater that were never considered good enough before he came. One in particular was a fellow by the name of Robin Starr.
Starry. Robin Starr was a terrible footballer, not very talented half-back flanker, whose half-forward flanker never got a touch. He would scare hell out of him. And he never went round a player on the field in his life.
Now, Robin Starr was a pretty tough character on and off the field, but until Wally came along, he was destined only to play ever second football. That's as much as he could, his ability would allow him to do. But Wally pulled him aside and said, look, I want you to do a specific job in the A grade. And I think Robin said, look, I'm not up to it. Well, Wally said, yes, you are. If you listen to the job I've got you to do, I think you can do it. And the job was for Robin just to stop his opponent from getting touches. And Robin could do that. He couldn't do much else, but he could do that. And so, that endeared him to not only to Robin, but to a lot of other people who came across Wally, because at least they were given the opportunity to show what they could do. And that was one of his attributes.
He's a very approachable bloke, Wally Dittmar.
So you knew him?
Yeah. No, he's pretty knowledgeable too. He knew a lot about football.
Yeah,
He could drink too.
I was just going to say, they like a beer and they like a chat, the Dittmars.
I've never seen a bloke drink so much and never change.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know he was drank all night and he'd still look the same.
Yeah.
He was in Werribee for about, I reckon 3 or 4 years, I reckon. But he's in the bank.
Oh, was he? Yeah.
In the state bank. He was in the state bank at Werribee.
Yeah.
That's right, he came
When Werribee had a state bank?
Yeah, he came there when round 4 was about to start. He wasn't there at the beginning of the season, and he was a player only then. But I think Squidgy Ettridge was actually the coach then.
Great name in Werribee.
Yep. And then Wally took over next year, and he went through until the end of 72. And then maybe that's when he went to the Riverland, I don't know.
Correct, wait, that's pretty much right. That's what it says in your book.
Yeah.
And he coached the first year he went there and took him from bottom to top.
Did he really?
I think they got, I know they got 3 premierships in a row or not. I'm not sure on that one.
69, 70 and 71, I think it was. Yeah.
Good number of years after his heyday at Port.
Yeah, because 72, yeah, he was in the preliminary final against us. Oh, we're not talking yet, are we?
No, you can talk whenever, whatever.
The first thing I noticed about Wally Dittmar when he came to the West Coast was the physique and the fitness of the guy. He had a fairly big body. There wasn't an ounce of fat on him. He was just moving muscle. And I was a kid of about 18 or 19, and I thought to myself that
Who's this bloke?
if you want to play at a high
Mole,
level,
is it?
you're going to have to
Nah,
have
that's
somebody
Snarky.
and a fitness
Snarky,
level like
Mole.
And he was fit.
Very fit, yeah, very fit. He's probably one of the most disciplined people I've ever met. The fellow made a comment that he drank a lot. He did, but never at the expense of what he had to do, never at the expense of his job or his fitness or whatever. During the football season, while he was, in some ways, you would say he was regimented. He was very methodical with what he did. He worked to a routine. And I could tell you from day to day where he'd be and what he'd be doing most days. And he never would drink during the week, of course, when he was playing football, never would drink during the week. But on the weekends, in those days, you only trained Tuesday and Thursday nights. So on the Saturday and Sunday nights, it was your own time, as long as you worked hard during the week to undo the damage you might have done on the weekend. But that was Wally's, the way he did things. He was fanatical about it. And as I said, he had a routine. For instance, you know, he would catch the same train to work. He would do the same things going to work in the city. He would catch the same train home. He would do the crossword on the way from there to the Alberton railway station. He would get off the train, he would go to the Alberton hotel. He would stay there for an hour, he'd have 5 beers. He'd go home and he'd be home at the same time. Only once did I see that the routine was broken. My wife and I lived at Cheltenham at the time, at Pennington at the time. And we were getting ready for me to go out and play squash. It was probably about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And my phone rang at home. I answered the phone and Wally said, hello, how are you going? I said, good. He said, now, I don't want you to say anything, and whatever you do, don't you laugh. But he said, can you do me a favour? I said, sure, what? He said, can you come out to the Dry Creek railway station, and pick me up? I said, Dry Creek? He said, just do it. I said, okay. So I got in the car and found out where the Dry Creek railway station. And I got out, and as I drove towards the station, Wally was leaning, with his suit and collar and tie, was leaning against a Stobie pole and he was reading the paper. And it was all I could do to not laugh. So I pulled up and he got in and he said, look, thanks for doing this. And I just said to him, did the train driver take the wrong turn? Well, and he didn't appreciate it, but that was my way of saying you've broken your routine. He must have got the wrong train, he put the wrong train. But very rarely would he do anything like that.
He obviously wasn't enjoying the experience of getting on the wrong train.
No, well, and more to the point, he didn't like the experience of me finding out. That was the problem, but it was either me picking him up or he walked. It was But as I said, you could almost say he was regimented in the way he lived his life. Extremely, he had a tremendous moral compass, excuse me, as opposed to his principles, which I can differentiate between, but he was a very principled person and a very moral person. You know, for instance, I can remember, just as part of his routine, when he was playing football with Ports, and as I said, I think I was probably playing Colts or something, just as a matter of interest, but Wally being methodical and I mentioned his moral compass, but he was devoted to his faith, and his faith had a huge bearing on the way he lived his life. And I can recall, just talking about the methodical part of his life, I can remember I used to go and sit on the pickets at the Alberton Oval when he was playing, so I was probably 12, 13 or something like that, I don't know. And I used to go there early so I could watch, and in those days I think the crowds were something like 10,000, you know, or something like that. And Wally used to wear scapulars around his neck to play football and in his normal life as a religious symbol. And I never forget, I was sitting at the pickets this particular day, and I'd ridden my bike over, and the team ran out, and before they were taking their position, all of a sudden Wally, he was up the northern end of Alberton Oval, near the goals, and he turned around and came running towards the fence, and I thought, I wonder where he's going and what's he doing. So he came straight up to me and he said, listen, he used to call me Jum. He said, Jum, I've left my scapulars home. Will you go home and get them for me, please? So I got on the bike and went home and found the scapulars tucked under his pillow. I came back, and at quarter time he ran over and I gave them to him, and he put them on around his neck. It was just one of those things that he just felt that he couldn't achieve what he wanted to achieve without them, plus it was probably a habit. You know, I said
that's right, he had to feel complete.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But that was typical of him, he was just that way inclined.
Oh, he used to kiss them and bloody do everything, and this and that, every game. He had to go and have a spew every game.
Bob Wilkins, another one, he'd spew every bit of game. We used to do it on a Saturday night. Doesn't matter how crook or much he drank on a Saturday night, he'd still get up and go to church Sunday. You know, if they played on all night, we'd go in then, 5 o'clock.
Yep.
It was bloody this mass, he'd go at, get up and go never miss.
He was a valiant man, wasn't he?
But he never pushed religion onto you or anything, never mentioned
No.
it to you, but he'd always go to the church.
Is there a Catholic church in Wirral?
No.
No, still not. Peter about, I don't know how many k's there now, 10?
12, 10 mile, 10 mile, wasn't
Oh, knocked down now, so not there anymore.
it? Yeah, 16 k's.
So So you'd have to go that far to go.
Oh, they'd go 50 or 60 mile. Oh yeah, I've got some of my family, that crew, they they go halfway around Australia.
They go to Streaky as a juniper.
But he lived home at our family home, and he worked in the city, but he would get up every morning and he would go to Mass and Communion every morning. And then he would come home, have his dinner, he'd be in bed by 8:30 every night. You know, and that very, very rarely did he falter from that. It was just the way he lived. He was a self-disciplined man. He liked to live that way. So that's I think that stood him in good stead too. Not only with his football career, but in life. I think he was a very gregarious person, but he had limits morally and ethically, what he would do and what he couldn't do, and what he thought other people should do. He could be pretty tough on other people.
He was certainly had high expectations as a coach.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did have high expectations, not only as a coach, but as a person. He had high expectations of people around him.
No, no. Well, that's right. Treated everyone equally. Yep. It was like that at Wirrala, because in the early days at Wirrala, 1 or 2 players did leave the club when he first got there.
Really?
Because they found it too hard. I could name names. I know 2, but I can't name names.
And that was when them days when it used to rain down here during training, and the freaking ball hit you right on the end of the thumb, and I was only about 13 or 14 or something. I was trying not to bloody cry, and he's come up and said, "What's trouble?" I said, "Oh, the ball just hit me on the end of the thumb. Keep you on the ball, won't happen again." Yeah, good point. I was expecting a bit of sympathy, but no, keep your eye on the ball, boy.
I'll tell you another story about him.
Yeah, all right then.
We were playing, see, Carcachena and Streaky Bay were probably our 2 hardest sides we had to play. They were very strong sides and pretty competitive. And we're down here, and that was when the 19th and 20th man days, when you come off, you were off. You was playing with 18 men or 17 men or whatever. We were playing Carcachena, and you know, we should have been leading at half time, but we weren't. And there's 2 players, I'm not going to mention their names, that weren't putting in. And Wally walked in, we all walked in. Before we could sit down, he said to these 2 players, "You can go and have a shower and get dressed and go home, or do what you like. No more required today." And he looked at us all and just only had to look at us to say, "Well, that's what I mean." So we went out with 18 men with 3 goals down at half time, come out and won by 3 goals. That's how fair dinkum he was. Yeah, he didn't like anyone shirking issues. If you shirked an issue, you copped it.
That's the way you win football games.
That's why we were at Cecil. Yeah.
Correct way.
Yeah.
No, he got us really fair dinkum, and we took it serious, and yeah.
Trainings were pretty hard, weren't they?
Hey?
Trainings were pretty hard. And the oval was just hard, flat dirt.
There's a bit of clover barrel on it, or barrels. And
So when he didn't pull up with...
If you kick the ball out of bounds, you'd get dragged.
Yeah.
Well, if it went out, if it was your bad kicking, you're off, you know. Get bastard in the middle, bring it in the middle, and straight over his head, and he'd just knock it over the back to whoever's running past, and just a lot of times he wouldn't even try and mark it because they'd have 2 guys on him. He'd knock it back, Peter or something. Me sometimes, not too often, but yeah, just coming you. If you had it out in the flank too wide, no good.
He was an example of what was required to play at a higher level, and he did that to the Wirrala team. You know, he had them a lot fitter than they'd ever been in their life. It must have been a shock to some of the players.
Absolutely.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
how were they going at the time?
Bottom for
Bottom.
15 years.
Bottom for 15 years. The first year he came, which was partway through the year, wasn't it? Squidgy Ettridge was coaching.
I was in the back of the station wagon down at the hall down here when the old man and 3 or 4 other, or must have been 6 of them in the station wagon drinking long necks, and saying to Squidgy, look, it's nothing against you, but we've got this guy here that can play football and we need him to coach, you know. And we hadn't won a game. I was only a kid in the back, and I remember him eventually talking him around, and you got to the grand final that year, didn't you?
We got beaten reasonable. But after that, she was look out.
So they were right. You did need him then. He was,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the next year, of course, they won the final. Like the next 3 years, won the final, grand final. Unbelievable. He brought discipline and a belief in themselves that they could achieve.
Did you see a difference in Peter's football?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God, yeah.
I wasn't a very good player though.
But you improved under Wally.
Yeah, oh, everybody did. And, you know, like if he'd sort of see the things that they could improve on, and like in Peter's case, like he used to duck his head when going for the ball. He'd duck his head when he's going to take a mark. And so Wally told him, okay, you've got a tree outside the house. He said, I want you to tie a football up in that. And he said, and every time you go through underneath, I want you to jump up and pull it down. And it worked. Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like Wally.
Yes.
Just like you were saying about that fella Robin Starr who could do one thing, and that was stop his player getting a kick.
Yep.
And
that's the sort of things that he set for the boys each week too in the Wirral Club. Was, you know, he'd say, okay, you're on him. He doesn't get any kicks. Keep him to so many goals or whatever. And yeah, it was just unbelievable. And one of the things that he did at one of the trainings, I remember Pete telling me about, we were even talking about this morning, that when he said to them, okay, run off the oval and go straight towards the change rooms. And so they did. And of course, when they got to the walls, cement walls, they all pulled up, and he said, what do you stop for? Why have you stopped? I want you to go through it. I said, keep running. And of course, they just couldn't believe it. But that, you know, that was the thing, believe in yourself, you can do it. Oh, the belief that he instilled into the players was unbelievable. Every single player benefited. And so did the association, because he coached at association level too.
Is that right?
Yep.
Because they'd finished bottom before he got there.
Yeah, and he drew the fitness level up and overran everyone else in the comp, you know, because they were the fittest team on Eyre Peninsula for a little while. And that was all thanks to Wally.
Who's that?
John Starkey, I reckon.
The first year after he was there.
Did he play?
That's him. Yeah. Now,
they went up to Sojourner and defeated Thevenard, who had won for 10 years in a row. And that had, you know, that was unthinkable that anyone could beat Thevenard, but Wirral and Wally Dittmar did.
Tell me about it.
Oh, we got invited up there for like a
pre-season, or?
Yeah, it was pre-season for a game, and it was like fair dinkum, like Wally never took, because they used to have the Minnipur Carnivals down here, and we used to go to the Minnipur Carnivals, and he didn't like that because it was you only playing short quarters, and you're coming on and off all the time, susceptible to injury. He'd sooner find someone that could play a good, solid game of football. And Thevenard had been the top team up here for years. Right, we'll have a crack at them. And we went up there and had a crack at them, all right, and beat them. And it was a fair dinkum. It was a proper fair dinkum game. Like there was no holes barred. Because they were a pretty physical side.
Yeah, Thevies didn't hold no.
Yeah, they were very physical.
Nothing back.
Oh yeah, no, she was busy.
So we knocked them off. So,
fairly well too, I gather.
Big pardon?
You knocked him off by 5 goals or so.
Yeah. Give him a good touch up.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was my first impression of Wally, the fitness and the physique. You know, like I said to you on the phone, he even had muscles in his jaw. When he talked to you, the muscles in his face.
You can see it in the photo.
You know, yeah. Oh, a great guy.
I think talking about his build and his face, I think I'm 99.9% certain that part of the look on his face, being a little bit gaunt at times, was he spent time as a child in a hospital with glandular fever. And I know that he had a dread of hospitals because of that, yeah. But as far as his fitness and his physique goes, I never knew him to be any different. I know he never lifted weights or anything like that. It was just part of his makeup, just the way he was. Whereas the rest of us were fairly tall and skinny. Wally was about 5'11" and a half and probably 14 stone or something of muscle, but it was all bloody muscle, all right, yeah.
Oh, wow.
He just had muscles in his jaw even.
Yep.
We had a bit of trouble with one of the blokes once, and he said, Wally's got muscles in his shit.
And his shit.
He's that fit.
Like had muscles in his arse cheeks, like fair dinkum.
What about the V? It looked like they had a special jumper made for him because it used to come, instead of coming straight down, it had a bend in it, didn't it? His chest used to push it out that far.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend. And he left Wirral and, well, he went up the Riverland. And then he passed away up there.
Yeah, right. How old was he?
He was 48. 48 when he died. It was December 31st, 1982. And he was 48. I was 38. He was 10 years older than me, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I know. I was young. I remember it was a hell of a shock, you know. But it wasn't over there, was it?
He was actually working at a bank in the city when he was diagnosed with cancer. And he was dead within 7 weeks of being diagnosed. Yeah, and I'm pretty certain it was either in Grenfell Street or one of the banks in the city anyway, when he was, yeah.
No, I think he was 37 when he played it. He finished at Wirral.
Yeah. The Wally Dittmar years, why don't you just quickly take me through that?
Well, it's actually...
You remember Wally?
Oh, yeah, I played with him.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, Wally was there. Oh, that's why I've just... Because when he was in the State Bank, and he came to relief there, I think it was in 67, just came for 1 year, and he loved the place so much he came back at 68 or 9. So that's just the 4 or 5 years he was here. So, yeah, it's good mates with Wally. He died very young, Wally.
But achieved a lot. Achieved a lot in the time that he had.
Oh, yeah, he played state footy and won the gold kick at court 2 years in a row, I think, 57, 8 or something.
Great way.
But when he came over home, he was through 31 or 2, but he came the same time as Bob Wilkins, who used to be a local copper, and they just, yeah, he was centre half forward, he was centre half back. And
that's what you need.
What an Iron Man he was, Bob Wilkins. He's probably close to the best player I ever saw in that league. Bob Wilkins. He was tough.
You remember?
Yeah, from the other.
Other side.
From the other side. But tell me about Bob Wilkins.
Bob Wilkins would be one of the, I'd say, best footballers I played with. He was at least, he would be definitely the toughest player I've played with. And I remember, like, the opposition feared him because he didn't stop. If he was coming through, he went through. That came away. But
his shoulders and.
But Bob was a good marker. I wouldn't say he was the greatest kick.
Shit of a kick.
No, but boy, hell, he was a very good footballer. I remember we had to go and play Woodner, or the Lee Hunt League in an association game, and I was playing half back flank, and Bob was centre half back, and us Wirral blokes that were picking the team. We were the only ones that knew that he had broken ribs. He had them all strapped up, you know, before he got there and everything else. You know, like he was captain of the association side, and came out and played. He still played a ripper of a game. Like, he was a magnificent footballer. Yeah, I think he played one league game too for North Adelaide.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Because I think he got a sprigged in the leg, and he got a pretty bad infection in it, and he's lucky he didn't lose a leg.
Really? Hard man.
He used to get really nervous before the games, didn't he? Like
oh yeah.
Finals, he'd be dry reach it.
Well, every game, there's only one game that I didn't know that he didn't dry reach in the shower before he went out and played. Every other game. And looking back on it now, I don't know, because see, Bob was another bloke that died young too. He had cancer in the stomach, and whether that was part of it, you wouldn't know, but that was a trait he had. He'd dry reach in the shower before every game, except for one that I remember.
And then go and terrify everyone.
Oh, they were terrified of him, all right. No worries about it.
Yeah.
Close to the best.
I was somewhere a long way away from here, and someone said to me, "So I come from Wirrala." Oh, yeah.
And he's big.
Oh, right. So he said, "Yeah, so you come from Wirrala, yeah?" Oh, that bloody Wilkins. And I said, "Oh, right, I remember him, do you? Remember him?"
Yeah. And he's big, bulky, and he just left a trail of destruction when he went for the ball. He did. You got out the way or you got cleaned up. You could look behind him in his wake and there'd be players all over the ground.
So you felt his
I felt his
wrath?
I did, yeah. But I always got on very well with him. He was very, very hard on the footy field, but he was a perfect gentleman off the field, you know, Bob Wilkins.
Copper?
He was a policeman at Wirrala.
Remember when he caught him, because Harry's mum never had a driver's licence?
Oh, that's right.
We were on a footy trip when we come back and Bob Wilkins slid down because your mum had got a flat tyre or something. And he hid so he didn't embarrass her. And then he left a message, he said, "You better come and see me next week and get your licence." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But he was one of the toughest footballers I've ever seen. He'd be the third toughest that's ever played in that league. In my time, George Curvin was probably the biggest Iron Man through the 50s, but the hardest man of all ever on Eyre Peninsula was Harney Phillips. Toughest man to ever pull on footy boots.
Port Adelaide need him to close it up.
Yeah, well, that hard man they're talking about there was the uncle of Greg Phillips.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's why we've got this bit of footage here.
Okay.
And another uncle was father of Neville.
Yep.
Is rewarded for that effort. Gibbs cut the head. Alan Stringer working hard, but in the way is Hobbs the Port.
Just trying to make something happen that wasn't really on.
Could be a fatal mistake as Hobbs drives in with a mammoth torpedo punt. Back there is Gibbs. Seabohm there as well. Gibbs comes out with the football. The handball was good to Russell. Had great presence of mind to get that football out to Seabohm, who in turn got it to Maynard. Maynard's kick is high. Port have the numbers once more. Phillips back there. What a man mounted.
Hurled ground. Used the body and took the mark.
There's a Glenelg player down.
Toughest man to ever pull on footy boots. And played a couple of seasons for West Torrens here in Adelaide while he was doing army service, but he played at Minipur and Poochera and combined for Leigh Hunt. Maybe combined for Streaky Bay as well when he played at Poochera, but yeah, he was a genuine Iron Man. I mean, people shuddered when they saw Harney coming. And Bob Wilkins was a little bit the same. Yeah, but he was a great bloke as well.
Went forward late in his career, I gather.
Sorry?
Or at least late in the Wally Dittmar era, I gather from your book, Bob Wilkins went up forward.
He did, yeah, which was a surprise because he was always centre-half back, until Wally saw something that other people didn't see, and he was just as effective in the forward lines.
Well, I gather it worked.
Busted packs and, yeah.
He got big raves playing in defence, and then when he went forward, he got huge raves.
The Rovers team, we had a couple of scraps with him. I don't know if you've heard of a fella called Leon Wright.
No, go on.
There was a bit of a ruckus once, and because Bob just split the pack and hurt a couple of people, and Leon Wright, it's only a little fella, he didn't like it, and he jumped on Bob's back, got him in a headlock around. But Bob just shook him off, brushed him aside, you know. But it started a bit of a brawl. It was at Wirrala, on the ground at Wirrala, and Bob's wife actually ran out on the ground and told him to come off. You've got to give it away. We're not going to put up with this. She was so upset, you know, she was almost in tears. But he No, he said, get off, don't worry about this. This is
So he
nothing.
didn't retire that day?
No, he didn't retire. He would never have retired. That's one of the main incidents I remember with Bob.
I reckon there might have been 2 incidents, because I reckon that the one I remember was at Penipi, up in the, close to the goals, up that end.
But Buff come in and fucking got him, Bob behind here, and they fucking belting the shit out of him.
Well, yeah.
3 of them having to go. Herd back at righty and another fucking right, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 rights.
Yeah, Sab, yeah.
2 rights, wait, 1 wrong, didn't it?
And then I think Bob just smiled, and then didn't he get him next time and put him underneath, threw him over the boundary here later, the next time they played, I think.
Leon Wright.
Leon Wright.
Still got lumps in the back of my head.
Leon Wright.
Go on then.
My first year home from school was in '68, and I had to stand Leon Wright. And we were going pretty good, like we were going good, but he knew I was only a young fella. And next thing, I was getting a few kicks on him, and he went whack, straight from, didn't even, it was behind me, he knocked me clean out. And when I got up, Leon's going flat tack down the other end of the oval. And I thought, boy, I'll wait until I see you again, you know. And I said to Wally at half time, it was down at Penipi, I said, did you see what happened there early in the piece? And he said, nah. I said, well, Leon Wright knocked me out. I said, well, I'm going to get him back. He said, don't let the umpire see it, or don't let me see it. I said, righto. So I waited to me, bided me time, and got him back down here at Wirrala.
Next time they met on the footy field, he, within, I reckon, probably after the first bounce of the ball, he ended up going like a helicopter off the oval and slid clean in under the cars, under the fence and under the cars.
And bloody, I said to Wally, did you see someone underneath the front of the car down there? And he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, well, I thought that was me payback time.
So that was you who knocked him flying under the car?
Yeah.
I heard about that.
And
that was a good punch.
And we turned out good mates. You know, like we put, I'll tell you another story, we got picked in the Mortlake Shield side, and Leon, because he could fight, he was a very good fighter. But he come along, he said, I'm going to sit alongside you today. Lindsay said, you know, we'll be mates today. And I said, it'll be good to have you alongside of me. But yeah, no, Leon, he was a tough man. He was a pretty good footballer too, you know, like Leon.
Like I said, George Gervin was tough, and Harney was tougher than those 2 combined. So yeah.
But this is John Starkey mould, but it's pretty brief, but it goes back to even the Caraway days, and it's just a few games we played through those 4 years, that's all. So I'll just...
Because it had been a long time between drinks.
Yep.
Because you're talking about this era, which was...
We're not going there, are we?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thanks for that.
Well, I never warned you. I didn't warn you either, did I? This is obviously the last time that you won a flag, and you were playing at the time?
Yeah, yeah.
So you played in 71?
No, I didn't. Well, I think I played in one of those grand finals. But
was it 71 was their last one?
Yeah, I played in the last one. What happened, I left school in '66, so I was too small. When Wally came along, we were still in the days of the 19th and 20th men, so there wasn't interchange. So I don't think I played at all in 68. I might have played a couple of games in 68. I basically just came, a lot of games I just get to run the last bit of the quarter. And it used to piss me off because all I wanted to do was play footy.
But you were just a kid.
Yeah.
Nettie was a left footer, a huge advantage.
Always.
And Wally made him from a good footballer to a very good footballer, because Wally was a tactician on the footy field. In my time playing against Wirrala, he always played at centre half forward. So we had our best centre half back on him.
Yep. And he'd have a little nip of Goey's buddy brandy. Him and Bob. They'd put Vaseline on their bloody eyebrows every match.
This is Wally.
Yep, and usually that was a fella called Lee Amy. I can't remember who else played centre half back for us, but Lee Amy was on half back and I'd be on the half back flank on Mick Barrett. So Wally at centre half back when the game started always got his centreman or his half back to kick the ball high. He'd signal, come on, high. So us backmen would all think, right, let's get up and punch it away. But Wally never ever tried to mark it. He just tapped it over the back. So he's drawn 2 defenders to him, tapped it over the back, and Mick Barrett there just feasted off Wally's knockovers, kicked goal after goal every week. You know, him and Pud Barrett, his brother, Graham Pearson and Neville Miller all benefited hugely from these knockovers of Wally's. And Neddy had a little bit of an advantage because he was a left footer and he used to wrong foot defenders a fair bit. I think he kicked 10 goals in a match once. And I would say he'd probably thank Wally for half of those. You know, that's what it was like. But Wally didn't have to do the damage himself. He brought the players into the game himself and let the players do the work. But it was his tactical expertise that, you know, won matches for Wirral like that. And Neddy was the beneficiary of one of those tactics.
Neddy Miller's there. You went and interviewed him the other day. He's on the end by my brother there.
Apparently he was another one who really improved under Wally.
Yes, he did. Like, they all did. It was just unbelievable.
Wally I couldn't mark a ball in my hands. It kept doing my thumbs, and Wally said you got to get it in front of your eyes and all that stuff.
What was he like as a coach?
Sorry?
What was he like as
Terrific,
a coach?
yeah, very good, very good.
Yes, talking about, you know, trying to beat Rovers. With Penipi one match, and Wally got us to get them wires to stitch a bit of, just cut a bit of this and stitch on the back of our...
Bit of material.
Material, about that size, just roughly cut. And...
Where did we have to put it, on your socks?
No, on the back of your jump.
Yeah, I can remember doing it.
And that's to break their
concentration
on the...
You know, what the hell are they doing? What's that on there for?
The siren going, just start the game, and they're all going, what the hell was going on here?
They're wondering what's going on with that instead of concentrating on footy.
That's interesting. That's really subtle. That's really getting into the psychological side.
Yeah, that's a Wally Dittmar.
You know what we did the next one? What?
What? No, I don't.
The back man went to the forward line, the forward man went to the back line, the forward went to the half back, complete swap. And they thought they already knew who they were playing. They didn't.
Tactics.
And then the siren went, we all took off, and they were wondering what's going on. We all had to
swap around.
Swap around, back to where we were supposed to be.
Mind games.
Yeah. He introduced all that. And so many people, not just Wirral, benefited from Wally Dittmar. Everybody in the whole league did. Yeah. Everybody was in awe of him. He's a good man.
Wally was a real thinker about, excuse me, he was a real thinker about most sports. When he was at Sacred Heart College, he was an outstanding athlete. He won the Goss Medal, which is the best and fairest in the competition. And I can remember, even when I was, you know, very young, he really thought about thinking outside the square. How could he improve not only himself, but how could he improve people around him, particularly in sport? But he was forever giving me advice, you know, what I should and shouldn't do, and all sorts of things, because we were totally different people. As I said, he had a terrific moral compass, which is probably not the same as me.
A little stricter than yours.
A bit stricter than mine, that's right. But he always had advice for people, but it was always thought about, you know, it wasn't spontaneous. You could see that he knew the direction he wanted to go and the way things should be. And I think that's what stood him in good stead when he was at football, because he knew what to do, when to do it, and how he wanted to go about it.
I was in the CMF Army.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to get permission to get back here to play in the grand final, because we're at a footy club. They put in bit of a write-up to say we want him back here to play footy and that sort of stuff. So, because you just couldn't get out of CMF just like that, you had to have a good excuse. Anyway, I got it. They got me on the bus. I was at LMA. Got on the bus there, and Wally's old man was on the bus too, and coming back, and we got here at Sparrowfart in the morning. Wally was there to meet me and the old man, and he said, "Lenz, get home, pull all the blinds down. Try and get some sleep, and just get to the game an hour before the game starts." Well, you know, grand final day, it's pretty hard to. You get pretty nervous, so I didn't sleep much, but I rested up, and yeah, we came out and won and
did the deed.
Yeah, we done all right.
I think that was when National Services were in, so there's a couple of guys who are far better than me, Jeff Penner and Graham Pearson, Good Pearson. They'd go out to Nassau and they'd come back for their spell just on finals time for those first 2 years. So I got dropped out of the 20 those 2 years, which at the time hurt me a bit, but.
But you certainly got to play.
Well, I wasn't good enough anyway. Let's put it.
You got to play in that era with those.
Yeah, and I played the last.
And then of course you got to play regularly through all the years when you weren't.
Yeah, that's
winning
right.
Premierships.
Yeah, that's
How
right.
was that?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah,
still pretty good.
All I wanted to do.
Was Wirral still competitive all those years?
Yeah, we were always about the mark. We had the Barretts and the Fultons and the Bulldogs and all those fellas there were all pretty solid footballers. Yeah.
Well, they won 3 in a row, and they were well on track for their 4th in '72. And in the preliminary final, Rovers, we had to play Wirral in the preliminary final to see who played Streaky Bay the following week in the grand final. And I think during the season it was pretty even. We'd won 1 each, I think. And we came into the preliminary final and Wirral were red-hot favourites. And even then they were still favourites to win the flag. And it was a tough and close encounter. And right at the last minute, about the Thursday night, Wirral lost one of their good players. I can't think of his name now. Ian Fulton was that player that pulled out just before the finals. He had an injury during the week on the farm, I think. And I would say that that's why we won the match, because Ian Fulton didn't play that day. He was a pretty good player and a fairly tough player. And anyway, it was a tough encounter, and we finished up winning the prelim by 2 points. And I'll never forget that, because Wally was so gracious in defeat. He knew it was the end, because that was the end of the 3-year streak. He came into our rooms after the game and he said, you know, today you were too good, and talked about things like that. And then he acknowledged the fact that we were the better team on the day. And he also knew that this was the end of an era, but he was so gracious about it. The defeat didn't bother him at all. He was there to praise up the victors, and he wished us all well for the following week in the grand final. Of course, we lost that by 20 points. But he bowed out as a champion, just the same as he did when he entered the competition. He was a champion, and he was still one when he left. Also, I didn't know that he went to the southeast, but I lived in Mount Gambier for a few years, and he had been at Penola, I think.
And won a couple of male medals.
Yeah, amazing.
And in the 2 years he didn't win, he was runner-up.
Was he? Yeah. I think he was runner-up in Streaky Bay at one stage.
But he was obviously fairly old by that point.
Oh, well into his 30s.
Playing-wise.
Yeah, well into his 30s.
I rather enjoyed the years that Wally was at Wirral, because my wife and I were married in 1968, and one of the benefits of Wally being with the bank, or the state bank, was he transferred from town to town around South Australia, so we got the opportunity to go on free holidays with him. And one of the, as I said, we were married in 1968, so we went over to him. I think we went to Wirral twice, maybe 3 times when Wally was there. And of course, Wally had quite a few friends that had shacks at Smoky Bay, so regularly I'd go across and do some fishing with some of Wally's friends and with Wally. And in later years, a little bit later, he put a shack at Smoky Bay, so I availed myself of that as well. So I loved it over there. When Wally first rang me and said, "Why don't you come bring Lorraine over and we'll have a holiday at Wirral?" I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So he said, "Look, when you get towards Wirral, drive slowly. He said, you'll miss it if you don't. I thought, you know, what's he up to? And when I got there, I realised what he was talking about, because there was the bank, Biddenbarney had the post office, there was a store and the pub, which was Sid Wally had the pub. And I thought, gee, well, what are we going to do here for the next couple of weeks? But it was fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Lovely people. And as I said, Smoky Bay was only a stone's throw away, so we really had some wonderful times over there with him, yeah.
He's a pretty good bloke.
Yeah, no, Terry.
When the game was all over, with about 3 minutes to go.
You know him from over here, or because he comes over here a bit?
Yeah, he came over here when Wally was coaching, and you know I've ran into him a couple of times when he was working at the Botlow at the Alberton. I used to go around and see him, go in the Botlow and see him. Yeah, they were good blokes, them Dittmars. They were wild buggers.
Yeah.
They were wild fellas.
Yeah, they're good people to know.
Oh, they were. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to Wally, one of the stories I've always remembered is those years when I wasn't getting a game when the National Service was on. My mum used to milk cows at the farm. We'd sell milk to the town. We had a waterworks camp in the town there, that sort of era. And we used to pick the teams and put the teams up in the pub at, I think it was Thursday night. And I used to sneak in some nights and look through the door, see if I was on the team, and go home with my tail between my legs. But one morning I went in to deliver milk to the Dittmars, and they had the bank house in Wirral, and the bank was at the front and the house was at the back. So I walked around the back with my billy of milk and knocked on the door, and Joan, that's his wife, she was there, and I said, I wanted to ask him if I was going to the team, get a head start. I said, is Wally there, Joan? She said, no, he's on the throne. So my hearing's not that great, so I thought she meant on the phone. So I stood at the door for about 30 seconds, and I said, is he working? She said, no, he's on the throne. And another couple of minutes and the door opened, and Wally said, Nettie, I'm having a crap, okay?
Were you in the team?
I can't remember. Yeah. So
you should put the word on him. Look, mate.
Well, I think that's probably what I found. I'm not too sure, but just he come out and said, look, mate, I'm having a crap. So my hearing is not real good.
Yeah.
I was a kid coming back from, must have been during the holidays, and sitting in the car on the back flank, the northwest corner of Wirral Footy Oval. Harry goes down, and he's lying on the ground with his feet out like that, and one foot was poking that way, and he gets down and grabs it and puts it up, because he didn't like the look of it being not where it should be, and straightened it up. Oh, God, of all the things I've seen, he broke his knee.
Yeah.
And he didn't like, it must have crunched when you straightened it up. You probably should have let Freddie Geisler do that.
Yeah, geez, that's right.
Tim was there, get up, you bastard, get up, you bastard. Is that why he's thrown you?
Yeah. Just try to stand up again.
God, I broke me fucking leg.
He doesn't wait he just throws his body at the ball.
It goes at the ball, no worries. And if he touches it, he'll handball out in mid-air.
Streaky got a chance here, Sweetcar Cure. Oh, he's met heavily by Tim Howard. Oh, beautiful, man.
Look at this.
Oh, you got to break at least.
Look at this.
It's 40, this will go somewhere.
Yes, he's looking for...
He's found him too. Beautiful little pass.
Nettie's got Glen Curls in his side.
Yep, Glen Curls should take this easy. No worries.
What a combination. Beautiful.
Well, he's got a chance for his 8th goal. Oh, Mitch has moved, but not far enough. Here's a goal.
There's the horns tooting, Tim.
Yep. Well, that's his 4 for the quarter. So
And he really loved the place. Like Terry talks about visiting Wirrala on a number of occasions while Wally was here.
Yeah.
Because Wally'd say, oh, you got to come over and experience
this.
And Terry talks about actually, you know, he even got to know Tom Kelsch.
Kelsch, yeah.
And,
well, they would have met up at the pub.
Yeah. And had some really good drinks with Tom.
Yeah.
And he just went over to and stayed at Smoky Bay a number of times. Like he kept on coming over.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoyed the place.
Yeah. Yeah. He was good.
Wally, they did have a hell of a party there one night, didn't they, at Wally's?
At his house. I remember being there for one party.
Because the bloke that's commentating for the thing there, his brother's wife took off without him.
Yeah, that's right.
She was saying, get in, and he was too sort of drunk, and get in the back, get in. And he fell back and slammed the door, and she took off, thought he was in. They went home about 20 k's or something.
Yep.
She said, get out and open the gate, get out. No, don't look.
He wasn't there.
A good time was had by all.
Well, they must have spent a fair party at Wally's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he loved a good time. He loved socialising with the locals.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was good like that, wasn't he? Oh, they were a great family. Joan was a lovely person too. And their kids, yeah.